What's up guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. We just buttoned up a 1500 horsepower LSX build. So what I wanted to do was sit down and make a video kind of explaining to you what it takes, parts wise and machine work, to make a 1500 horsepower capable engine. Alright, first things first, I want to go over the machining process. When your block gets in here, whether we order it from GM or Summit or wherever, the block is not ready for assembly. We have to take it through the machining process. To start the machining process, we get it unpacked, we go over the block, make sure there's no cracks or any kind of shipping damage, and then we deburr the block. The reason we deburr the block is, one, it saves our hands, and two, it eliminates any future cracking from a stress fracture. That means there's a very sharp point. It's a lot easier to crack on that sharp point than it is a dull point. So that's why we go through and we deburr the entire block. Then the first thing after that is we're going to take it over to our boring bar, and we're going to get it 5 thou from size. That's kind of a rough cut. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 cuts per cylinder to get it to the desired size. For instance, this is the 3880 bore block, and we have to take it to 4120. So we have some material that we have to move in each cylinder, and it takes a couple passes. But once we get to that 4120 bore size, then we'll take it out, we'll take it over to a line hone, and we'll get the main straightened out. We are utilizing an ARP main stud, so that is going to mess with the main housing bore. So we have to correct that. It's going to egg shape it, so we put it in the line hone to correct that. After that, the next step is we're going to throw it in our cylinder hone. We're going to bolt a torque plate to it, and we're going to make sure that those cylinders are perfectly round and straight. The final bore size on that will be 4125. The next step is the final step in the machining process for the block, and that's going to get square deck. The surface finishes on the block as they sit from GM are not good enough. They are not adequate enough to be run at this kind of horsepower, and they're just not good enough. So we stick it in the surfacer, and we utilize a BHJ block true fixture. That way the decks are perfectly flat. And after that, the only other machining that we have to do is balance your rotating assembly. That's a very long drawn out process, and we'll probably spend an entire video on that later on. But let's move on to the parts that were used. Starting off, we did go with Callie's on our crank and rod setup. If you follow us much on social media, you know that we love our Callie's products. This one is no different. We used a Callie's Dragon Slayer crankshaft with a 4-inch stroke. It's a great crank for something like this. The horsepower rating is well over 1500 horsepower, and it's a great foundation for this combination. The second thing we used from Callie's is going to be their H-beam comp stars. The comp stars are rated a little less than 1500 horsepower. They really underrate their products. We've proven to go well over 1500 with that exact connecting rod that we are using in this application. They do come already with ARP 2000 rod bolts already installed. The next thing we ordered was a CP Carrillo bullet piston. Obviously, if you follow us, we use those guys a lot too. The main reason we use CP is because their shelf pistons are by far better than their competitors, and the simple fact of that I don't have to spend extra time deburring the ring lands or the valve reliefs. That is the biggest pain in the ass, in my opinion, is to open up a fresh set of nice pistons and feel a bunch of sharp edges or burrs in the ring lands or the valve reliefs. So that's why we use CP bullet pistons. They're rated well over 1500 horsepower, even in their shelf pistons. That pretty much sums up the short block, but I'm going to keep going on the parts we use because this will be a long block eventually. We are waiting on a couple other parts to come in from Brian Tooley. That is another big speaking of Brian Tooley, that's where we get all of our camshafts, our gaskets, our bearings, and all of the miscellaneous stuff to put an engine together. So big shout out to those guys. They always keep us well supplied with parts. For the camshaft, which is one of the biggest things that we order from those guys, we work with Nick over at Brian Tooley a lot on anything that's going to make over 1000 horsepower. We go back and forth to make sure the cam that we do have or that we are going to order is going to be perfect for the application. Whether you're going to be doing a street strip or mainly a street car, mainly a drag strip car, a road race car, whatever, your cam spec needs to be tailored to your specific application, and they make sure that they put us in the right position to do so. Along with the cam, we also order a timing set. And you've heard me harp on this subject before, but we do not use anything other than a comp hex adjust with a Cloy C5R timing chain. The timing chain that comes with the comp hex adjust kit is fine, but we do not use it. We throw it in the trash and we use the Cloy C5R chain. It totally eliminates the problem of running a timing chain, which is stretch. We don't use double rollers here, we only use the single, because the double stretch just as bad. As you've seen in the 1,000 horsepower teardown video, where we tore down the Bullet WS6 motor, his double roller timing set that he spent a lot of money on still stretched. So we did install a comp hex adjust kit with a C5R chain, and we'll do an update video next season, but I guarantee you it's as tight as the day we put it on. So that's what we utilized in this build, and that's pretty much what we utilize for every build. Going along with the cam and the timing set is the lifters. Now, we're funny about lifters here. Lifters are kind of always changing, and you kind of have to go with the flow on these things. Used to LS7 lifters from GM were kind of shitty. Now they're great. The Delphi stuff we don't use, but as far as aftermarket, we typically use Johnson. We either use their tie bar slow leak down race lifter, or we use their standard slow leak down, basically like their street strip lifter, which is what we used on this guy. He's going to be more on the street than he will on the strip, so we tried to tailor for that application. Keeps the budget down more in a workable budget range without sacrificing any of the quality of the parts. That pretty much catches you up to where we are now without going over the covers. They're just stock GM covers and pan, windage tray. We did use a 10296 milling oil pump. I like the 10295s or 6s. There's really not much of a difference if you ask me as far as application. That pretty much is a rundown of what it takes to build a 1500 horsepower capable LSX. And before you go, I did want to let you know that we did launch our website last week. We've got a bunch of orders in. Thank you guys so much for using us to buy parts from or buying gear. I think we are doing a giveaway soon. We haven't quite figured out what we're going to do a giveaway with, but be looking out for that. The way we're going to do all the giveaways is if you buy a t-shirt, you enter to win the giveaway. And yeah, as always guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll catch you on the next one.